Welcome to the Sunflower Rising podcast, where we explore what happens when our raw, messy humanness collides with the boundless grace of Jesus Christ. For too long, the 12 steps have been seen as something reserved only for drugs or alcohol. But here, we're breaking that stigma wide open. These steps are a pathway to surrender, healing, and freedom for everything life throws at us with Jesus right at the center. It's about progress, not perfection. I'm Nikki.
And I'm Rae Anne.
And we're thrilled that you're here. Pull up a chair, let's rise together, and remember to always face the sunlight.
I posted it to TikTok and stuff, cool. And then that just seems so fluid and natural, but then sitting here like this, I'm like, I don't know what, I don't know how to do this. I don't know what to say.
We're going to have to just completely,
just be here with each other.
All this stuff.
Yeah.
It's hard to do.
I was telling my husband the other day, I was like, because I told him we were going to come up and start recording. I have been super excited, but there's almost been like a procrastination fear, I think.
Yeah.
That thinking about, I haven't been to school, I'm not educated, I'm not taught, I don't know, I'm just jumping in, self-taught, figuring it out as I go, which is my personality. So it's not that's not even new to me. Yeah. That's just who I am as a person. I'm 100% okay of just jumping into something and figuring it out as you go. I've never been afraid of mistakes or failure. To be honest with you, failure doesn't even exist in my vocabulary. Right. I think everything's just a learning experience. We're too hard on ourselves sometimes. But I told him, I feel stuck. I feel afraid because I always know, I bet you there's a better way you could do that. I bet you there's an easier way to do that. Or I bet you there's some way you're supposed to do that I don't know how to do. Yeah. So I've just kind of been frozen in fear of even just doing little things. Yeah. Which is so funny because it's not my personality.
Well, your brain, when you start something new, it tries to look at the whole thing at one time. Yeah. And then you'll get stuck because you don't know how to do the whole thing at one time. Right. So if you look at it in little pieces, and so today's piece is get the first one recorded. Yeah. And then the editing, the pieces, we will figure that out. That's next step. Right. And so, but then there is also the part of somebody's going to see this. Yeah. You know.
But that doesn't bother me at all. I'm really just
ready to get it going.
I think that's the beautiful part where Jesus comes into play is when you're doing everything for Christ, that helps eliminate for me the fear of the people or the worried about, is it going to reach people? Is this going to be successful? I've been doing things like this this year will be 16 years in July because I've been sober and saved almost 16 years. Yeah. And leading groups or doing ministry or even doing different things like this outside my comfort zone, I had to adapt the mantra for myself that if it reaches one person, then it was worth it. Yeah. That was the point. That it doesn't matter if it's 100, 1,000, 50. It doesn't matter if it reaches one person who is interested in wanting to know Christ or to love Christ or to even. I keep listening to or thinking about the helping them quiet the noise of the world, even if you don't have a relationship with Jesus, to just be willing to maybe just bend an ear our way that we can talk in a way or discuss things in a way that might even make them intrigued. Because even for me, that's a win. I just want to talk about Jesus and the things about Jesus without any of the world's input or
doesn't matter,
or thoughts on it.
That's not what's important. No, I love that because that's been my approach to coaching is I'm not the coach that's out there to make millions of dollars. I'm not the coach that wants to coach from a yacht somewhere or that's not why I did this. And I'm not the coach that has all these huge goals for a platform. It's more however many people God sends me, that's my goal. Right. That's my reach. That's my impact. And it's not about necessarily large numbers, which, I hope that I can help a lot of people if God's bringing us, but it's about the people He does bring me. How does my coaching impact them? Right. And how are they able to grow through the coaching conversations and sessions we have? So I love that alignment there.
Which I think that's funny that it even leads us into right now of us recording the first intro right now of talking with each other or just who are we? Why should anybody listen to us? Where did we come from? How did this come about? Yeah. And we're not even a likely match. This 100% was us being obedient, listening, and God ordained this. Yeah. We don't have the same background. Right. We don't have anything about a similar walk in life other than
Right.
today we can say what aligns us is our heart for Christ or
Absolutely.
our love for Christ and doing all things Christ-centered. Because even doing this together is we've had to learn each other. We've had to learn like what is it that God wants us to do? Like, why is he even bringing these two people together? And we're getting to know each other from this. We don't even have a history that led into this. We're not even like, oh yeah, we've been friends for years and hey, this would be so fun. You want to do this together? It was an idea came. I thought about doing something like this. It is really just, this is our times and this is what people's doing. So there's nothing wrong with doing a podcast or talking about things this way.
Right.
And God 100% placed you on my heart before we'd had one conversation together.
Right.
And I just said, hey, would you grab a coffee? I've really got something crazy to ask you.
I know. It's amazing. I know that first conversation we had, how connected to you I felt. And I'm like, this is so weird. Jesus weird. But it's like, I've just met her and I feel like I know so much about her. I just feel like, felt this alignment in the direction God was taking us from conversation number one. Right. And then to get the text about a podcast and just exploring it was amazing because God's had it on my heart to do a podcast, but I never felt comfortable just setting a recording by myself. Tried it a few times. And so I needed a partner. I needed a conversation.
Like a push.
I needed a push as well. And I needed the right person that, even though what we do is aligned, it's a little bit different. And, but yet I think the conversations are going to be amazing because we're going to let Jesus lead and we're going to center it all around him.
Right.
And what happens when we submit to him and we come under his guidance and leading in our life. And so, I'm ready to get things kicked off.
Yeah. It's exciting too where we've talked a few times where we've met before we started recording to be able to just get a feel for things and get some of the logistics and the ideas and all that like aligned with each other is knowing that even personality wise, I've had to say like, what I've caught on or what I've sensed about you is you're not a woman of a lot of words, but when you do say something, there's meaning, there's context, and there's purpose to it. Like you really have a heart and passion for what you say. And then I've had to tell you like, I'm more about me, that you might have to grab my ankles and bring me back down to earth and be like, okay, let's just get a little more grounded here. Yeah. Because my husband's told me it my whole entire life, I'm a huge dreamer, I'm a ponder, I'm a thinker, I'm always can be way, way out ahead of myself sometimes. So even that with God knew that about our personalities has been such a great match. And I'm very open and transparent too. So there was even the times like you might need to be my filter or you might need to be my okay, Rae Anne, that's beautiful, but I just don't think that's a good idea.
Well, and from my side, like you're going to draw out of me things that I would probably want to keep private, and that's a good thing. And you're going to encourage me to share and be vulnerable when I've been someone that's a lot more worried about being buttoned up. And I'm getting over that. I'm recovering perfectionist. I'm recovering presenter kind of person. And so I'm excited to see and a little bit scared, not going to lie, about how that's going to come out of me. And it's a good thing because I know that God wants me to share parts of my story and parts of my life that have kind of been behind the scenes. And so, I love the push and pull
that we're doing the same thing.
Yes, absolutely. So I started working with a coach in 2022. I just had come to some shifts in my life professionally, some shifts in my life in motherhood. My kids were older, and so I was out of that kind of daily grind of motherhood, and it was more raising bigger kids, teenagers. And so that made a huge impact in my life. And it helped me to kind of reconnect with myself, think about who I was for the first time in years, outside of just the daily grind of working and being a wife and a mother. And so that made a huge impact in my life. And it made such an impact in my life that I decided to change my career. So don't scare anybody, because that's not necessarily what happens when you start working with a coach. But that's what happened for me. And so I had spent almost 20 years doing marketing for agricultural groups here in Oklahoma. And I loved my time there. It was really great. But it was just time to make a change. It was time for me to work with people one-on-one. And really, in the marketing space, it's easy to look at people as clicks and target markets and consumers. But I wanted to look at them as people and really get deep in their lives. That was a favorite part of all my years in marketing, was getting to know the people I worked with. Yeah. And so once I learned what coaching was and saw the impact in my life, I started training to be a coach. And that's still a process I'm in, getting some more certifications even right now. Learning how to help people is going to be something I hope I do the rest of my life. I always want to be learning.
Right.
But so as a coach, I want to help people grow. I want to help people live out of their being and not just their doing.
Yeah.
That's really what the shift for me was. I was doing and doing and doing and had forgotten who I wanted to be in this world. And it sounds crazy, but if we don't intentionally work on who we want to be, then we'll let the world or anything else draw us one way or the other.
Right.
And so it was just coming to that intentionality. And so I want to help that. I want to help others.
Yeah.
And so I'm still in the process of building that practice of helping others. And it's small right now, but, I'm just letting God lead to the people that he wants me to work with. And so that's kind of where I went from a marketer for agriculture to a coach.
Nice. I love it. Which even that sounds, that's so important as you walk with Christ or you walk with Jesus. That's what you find is everything about his word just tells us, remember who you are in me. And we try to find our identity in so many things of the world.
Yes.
I mean, our role as a mother or our role as a wife, our role as a friend, our role as a sister, our role as a daughter, our role at work, or all the things there. And it's just like you said, nothing is permanent, so you get pulled and you get swayed, and then we wonder, like, we wake up one day just with a loss of a sense of identity and wondering, who the heck am I? Like, what has happened to me? Who am I today?
Yes.
So it's important to focus on those things, because you have to. I was listening to something the other day. It was I'm going to misquote it. I apologize, but it's that healthy, emotionally healthy spirituality video thing I was listening to.
Yes.
And that man, Peter something, we can put a reference up about it later just to show people what we're discussing if they want to look into it or not.
Yeah.
He had said something that I thought was so profound, but it was so simple. And he said, to know Christ, you have to know yourself.
Yeah.
And I just thought, well, that's something, because a lot of people want to think, well, to live for Jesus is I have to, and you do have to die to self to live for Christ. That's the point. But you're not dying to who you are as who he's made you, your personality, or, just all the things that make you who you are. You have to fully understand who you are to even operate in Christ or to understand Christ, because we're made in his image.
Yes.
And if I'm made in his image, I have to understand who I am as a person. And we look outside of ourselves so often to figure that out, or to see, well, who am I? What am I? And it's okay to sit and evaluate yourself and to get to know yourself and to understand yourself.
Yeah.
Because you can't operate something you don't understand.
100%. And, there are parts of ourselves that have to die.
Yeah.
There's parts of ourselves that don't honor Christ. But a lot of times, I'm afraid some culture and some parts of Christian culture have just said, kill everything.
Right.
And then we miss the how God made us.
Right.
We miss the beautiful parts. And so spiritual formation, spiritual development, personal growth, however you want to frame it, is a lot about, okay, God, what are the beautiful parts you gave me to grow and flourish, and what are the parts that need to be pruned?
Right.
And so that's really the bottom line of spiritual growth is what parts do I need to water and tend to, and what parts is he calling me to let go of. And so there's coaching is one way to do that, and for me it's a very forward-looking way. There's therapists and counseling are very valuable, and they spend a lot of time going back and saying what happened then and how did that impact you. That's important. But the coach's role is different. The coach's role is we're going to look out forward, we're going to look ahead, and we're going to say, where do you want to be, and what's the gap between where you are now and where do you want to be, and then we're going to work on that gap and we're going to close it.
Right.
And so that's there's a lot of conflation because of our social media on what's a therapist, what's a counselor, what's a coach. And as a coach, I work really hard to stay in my lane. And I think that's important, that coaches don't try to be therapists, because we're not trained the same way. And they have great purpose in people's lives, but that's not what I do.
Yeah.
And so
it's funny, I'm going to have to, some word you just said, we'll have to look it up and put the definition at the bottom. I don't even know what it was because it just slipped my mind.
Okay.
But it was when you were comparing the therapy, I think you said, did you say convoluted? No, that's not what you said.
Therapy, counselor, and coach.
Yeah, but when you did a comparison of them, you said the world, there's a lot of something. And I'm like, I'm going to have to look that word up.
I'll have to,
I'm gonna learn
I don't even remember what I said.
It's funny because, again, the more we do this and the more we talk and the more we kind of get to know each other in this systematic thing that we're doing here is we're seeing how it is very similar. My background in, again, saved and sober almost 16 years. But before that, I just lived for myself. I really thought I was just birthed to be Rae Ann Jones and live my life to whatever makes Rae Ann Jones happy. Yeah. And there was nothing. I was my purpose. I was my point. My whole being was the purpose and point of my life, which, as we talk more, we'll get into that, like tell stories and share personal things so people will get to know us a little bit more intimately and like relate with things. But my foundation is the 12 steps.
Yeah.
Because I started out in NA, and for me it was great. It was a beautiful place to start, but I got to where I felt my wheels were spinning a little bit, or maybe what you'd call a glass ceiling. But if you research or look at the history of any of that, it's all birthed out of the Bible. It does have Christian roots or biblical roots, and so in my recovery and God actually married and met, then I was like, okay, here we go. Yeah. This is what I've needed my whole entire life. And just being able to talk about the 12 steps or teach people the 12 steps has been my passion. That has been everything that just gives me breath, gives me life. That is why I'm here today, and that's what I long to do for people. Yeah. But on the 12 steps, and it gets to see how great it is how you and I connect and blend so well together, is the 12 steps actually wants you to go back and look at things. And I call it root plucking. We need to find out the root of maybe why we operate this way, we think this way, we move this way. And there's one part that you do an assessment of your flaws and your assets, or sometimes you'll hear people refer to it as character defects. And it just is an example, a quick one to kind of get an idea of systemically how things work is I was a humongous control freak. Okay. But life was unsafe for me. I didn't have anyone to depend on. I didn't have anyone to rely on. There was nobody, even if there were people around me or whatever. In me, my thinking was, there's nobody. It's just me. I can't rely on, depend on, trust, or nothing. I am everything. So I was a control freak. I needed to control everything to feel safe. I had to control to know what was next, or it was just whatever. And then after you do this and submitting all this stuff to God, and then when you're saying die to self, that did have to die in me in the way that I saw it or perceived it. But that trait that I gave worldly value to is actually something he can use where he turned control, and it could be leadership. Yes. And then that's something, the 12 steps does as well, is it takes all, I call it the muck and the junk, and it helps sort things out, and it helps things make sense to you. You connect the dots and you figure things out. So it even aligns when you're saying the Christian coaching. We'll get to talk about the 12 steps part, which is an applicable thing to be able to help you with, but then also looking at the future makes sense. And I had went through a program in one of our local churches here, and it helped me so much. And one of the things that I walked away with that God told me is he took my past and my future, and he's making it make sense in the present. And that made the past not hurt so much. It gave me healing. It gave it purpose of like, okay, I can take all the negatives and all the bad things that I've been through and know there's a purpose and a point for it in the future. And then how do I marry those two and do what I'm supposed to do today and be in the present and use all of that stuff. Yeah. So it really took a lot of the pain off and helped me heal from some of the things that I had been through.
Yeah, that's exciting. And that's Jesus right there, because there's another force in this world, the evil one, that would want that to stick with you. Yeah. And he would want you to be stuck in that. But I just love that you gave it to Jesus. And he's like, no, this is going to be useful. It's not going to be a weight. It's not going to be something that, that you carry. So I'd love to know a little more about how you came to be someone that was struggling with sobriety and other things in your life to someone that walked women out of that. Like, tell me about that gap and that change.
What's funny is I've come from a long line of addiction. Sometimes in my family, it's easier to say, like, who doesn't have an addiction issue than who does.
Okay.
But I had always thought, I'm different. This will never, ever happen to me. And this is also the part where I think it's very important is you operate from your environment, from your influences, and there's things that are wired inside you that you don't even know you're wired that way. And until you sit down to know yourself or to heal or just, go through the things that you've experienced in life, you almost can operate in automatic or autopilot and you don't even realize that's happening to you. So I've still said it a million times when I've talked to people. I don't know how I label myself as an alcoholic drug addict who also had daddy issues. Those were my three main things that I allowed to wreck my life and really throw me off course. But alcohol would be my preference, but I did drugs, and daddy issues was just something I'm still having to process and learn through today about some things, but I don't know how it happened to me. Like that is something I can go through my steps and tell you my details and my story, but I'm still surprised every day that happened to me because I became everything I hated. I became everything I didn't want to be. My first time I went to an NA meeting was, and I'll have to share a little bit of my husband's story, but not too much. We try to, in recovery or that kind of stuff, we try to protect people that their story is their story. But I've been with my husband since I was 15 years old. So there's some stuff that's a little bit too intermingled that's hard for me not to share. But really what my problem is when I went to my first NA meeting is I went there to learn his program, because if I learn how to keep him sober, I know how to be a sober because I'm a good girl. I blamed my husband for everything. It was his fault that I ended up exactly the way that I was. It's probably about my third NA meeting that I was just like, hey, why are all these people talking about me? They don't know me. And then I thought, oh my gosh, maybe I do have my own problems. Maybe there's something I need to work on. So then what I was actually revealed to me is I am a codependent, people-pleasing, neurotic enabler. Like those are my vices that I really had to do internal work to learn about. But so I didn't do like drugs and alcohol as a lifestyle for a long time. It was recreational or fun or whatever. We actually moved here to Oklahoma because we thought we were running away from things to change our life. And I remember my mom said, hey, as I was pulling away in the U-Haul, my mom said, remember, wherever you go, you take you with you. And I just thought, duh. I mean, it wasn't profound at the time. I thought, okay, Mom, no duh. Like, almost like, okay, until I got into recovery and I thought that's, no matter where you go, you take you with you. Everything that you struggle with, everything that's going on, all your muck and junk that I talk about or whatever, it's in here and it's with you everywhere you go. So we move out here and then we just start repeating the same things, attracting the same people. And I'm going to fast forward to the day that I decided I needed to change my life, or something needed to change. Is me and my husband had an altercation and DHS had to get involved. And they came to interview me and my husband and my children to take my children away from me. And that one was absolutely not like, those are my kids. I have got to change my life. It wasn't instant. It probably took about a year. But I had a girlfriend who was a huge part of my story, that I knew her before she started going to church or before she found Christ. And she'd always let me call her. And I would complain and just blah, blah, blah. But at the end of every phone call, she would say, hey, you want to go to church with me? Oh, absolutely not. I don't need that. Why would I want to go there? Those people are hypocrites. Why do I want to go to church? Like, they're just judgy. They don't understand me. I'm different. I don't need that. I don't belong there. But she never judged me. She never told me anything outside of, hey, I love you. If you want to go to church, just let me know. Until one day I called her and said, can I please go to church with you? And I wish that God had just tapped me on the head and it was an instant process, but it wasn't. Sometimes I would go to church hungover. Sometimes I would go to church high on meth. Sometimes I'd go to church burned out or just I would just cry and pour everything out, and I'd leave and I'd go do drugs, or I would go drink that night, or it wasn't an instant process, but I just kept going until one day it set that I thought, okay, I don't have to do it this way anymore. And then the church itself and the people in the church were a huge part of my recovery, and a huge part of a turning point in my life, where I just thought, I want to live for Christ now and not against Christ. And I say we, I mean, he's got it figured out, but him and I are figuring it out together each and every day of my life as I just keep walking this journey. Because you and I doing this podcast, this isn't my first time doing something like this either, for talking about 12 steps or doing 12 steps or actually living the 12 steps, it being my whole entire life, which, we'll get into more of that too. There's a lot here for us to unpack on my side and your side for the people to get to know us better. But this is just, I know that this is just what I'm supposed to do, and just the way we're doing it now looks different. It looks different. It changes throughout the years, but the point is still the same.
Yeah, I love that. So I just have to stop and say for a second, that really touched me when you talk about going to church, even when you might have been using meth or you have been drinking. And as someone that's always been in church, and some churches that would be open and some that weren't, like, I hope people hear that and see, like, open our doors, let people in where they're at.
Right.
Jesus is big enough to handle it. And I'm afraid too many times we want to keep everything nice and clean and comfortable at our churches. And God needs us to bring everybody in. He needs us to let the church be the place where you can come at your lowest moment, and your hurting moment, and your trying again moment, and keep coming. I love that you were willing to keep coming, and you were welcomed, and that could keep working in your life.
Yeah. With you saying that, I mean, I agree with you 100%, because I am the type of person that I know I have been called by God that to love those that are harder to love, or love the ones that seem deemed unlovable. Because a lot of times I agree with exactly what you just said, is if there aren't any visible sins or outright problems or issues, then it looks like we've got Jesus correct. We are doing it right. This church, or just any church, if there's no problems, no issues, none of this, you don't see any of that, well, it's because we're doing it right. We've got Jesus right. To me personally, in my own opinion, the more openness you have about your struggles, the more openness you have about your sin, the abundance you have of love, and the more you do talk about Jesusness with the openness, then I think we have it right. It's not that, well, come here and then serve and be liked and look great and wear the mask that people say, but then go home and know that you're fighting with your wife, you're going to get drunk tonight, you're struggling with pornography, like all the things we want to keep secret. I personally feel like church should be the hospital for your soul, where that should be the one place you want to run to talk to somebody, or to have that community help you carry that burden, that sin, that issue. But we're not going to leave you where we found you. That's the part too that I struggle a little bit, is I believe that the church should be a hospital for our soul and for all the stuff that we struggle with. And I do 100% believe Jesus is the answer, but just telling people Jesus from the stage isn't, it's not that simple. We need to have there's got to be a plan. There's got to be a program. There's got to be something that we offer to people to be able to apply. Like, how do I apply Jesus to my life? How do I know that you tell me about this perfect being, this perfect entity that I'm supposed to submit my will and my life to, and I'm imperfect and I've got these struggles, they're going to make me want to hide. So how do I take the perfection and apply it to the imperfection? If I don't have a system to do that, well, then that's why it's not working out. Because I don't think it's just as easy as, well, you need Jesus. Okay.
Right. No, there's got to be more to it. There's discipleship. And it's, like you said, Sunday morning is amazing time of worship, and we learn, but discipleship is something different. And whether it's addiction or it's, we hide a lot of different things. Everybody does.
Yeah, sure.
And so we've got to be able to bring that out and say, okay, how am I every day, every minute going to give my life before God and let him work? And
Right.
so that's, we need each other to do that.
Yes.
God can do a lot in our lives, but he uses us
Right.
to do the work.
Yeah.
He uses our conversations. He uses our commitments of time together. And so I want to make sure that we're always open to walking with one another in deeper discipleship. So. Right.